Welcome. Here's the Sarcasm Liberty stream, everybody. I'm sorry. I apparently accidentally, Madness has just joined in like right as I was going to go live. I didn't want to waste any time. I accidentally hit, I was on a website, and then an ad popped up, and I was trying to hit close, and then somehow I accidentally hit in broadcast, and it just cut the stream off, and it couldn't restart it apparently. So I had to start a whole new stream. So I'm really sorry about that, everybody.
No worries.
Mike,
I'll just pick back up with where I was at.
Yeah, if you could remember where you were at, Mike, go ahead and pick back up.
I was saying that Trump gets rattled to the point where he's hurling insults at his opponent, and that's how he tries to win. He tries to win by demeaning whoever he's fight with.
I would agree with that, like so much. I feel like that is definitely the case.
And so I would give the edge to Putin as far as like if I was saying that if we got into some kind of like conflict with Russia, as far as like decision making, I would give the edge to Putin. I think just because he would stay calm in any kind of rough situation.
I feel like you bring up a great point.
I don't know what Trump is going to do if we're ever actually in an actual war. I don't know how Trump is going to handle it.
I don't think Trump can handle heat. No. I do feel like what you said made up a great point to me. Is for anybody out there and everybody on the panel right now, though, like if you had to choose based off of what you currently know, and I do, Madness, I would definitely lean towards. I want your answer on this, especially because you don't reside in the U.S. though. But for Cody and Tim too, I want to know, like, if you had to choose, and these are your only options, and just based off of what you currently know and what you think they might do, if you knew for sure tomorrow the U.S. is going to go into war with any country, not necessarily Russia, but any country, and then you have to imagine, okay, first of all, your first choice is Trump, obviously. Your second choice, and you have to imagine that for the second choice, they are suddenly completely on America's side, and it's just the way they handle themselves and their politics and how they like go about doing things, not like who the actual person is. Who would you rather have as leader, Trump or Putin? For America, if you were going to go to war tomorrow, who would you pick if you had your choice tonight? I can see Mike's thinking really hard on that one. You see in the thumbnail. You're like, I think I perplexed you with that one. Whoever has an answer, jump in first, and then we'll go from there.
I would personally say, of course, I want America to win, but I think if you go by pure intellect and by more logical thinking, I would say Putin had bigger chance of winning. But it depends. I'd say it either depends on which side is going the EU stand.
Yeah.
If the EU is going to work with Russia, then USA have a big enemy against them. But if the EU is going to side with America, then they might be having a bigger chance to win.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted your input, because
a lot.
As somebody who doesn't reside in the US, you can
hate Trump and hate Putin. So I don't know which one he exactly hates more.
Yeah, but I mean,
we have to have minding for that.
Back to what I was saying, though, like I feel like as somebody who doesn't reside in the U.S., you can provide an insight there that neither me or Tim or Mike can actually provide. Of like, what does somebody outside the U.S. think possibly of those two? So you would say Putin, but it also hinges on their whether or not they can cooperate with the. Fuck, I forgot what you said. What was it?
If it is pure USA and Russia, then I'm saying in intellect and the strategy, I would say Putin have a bigger edge. But it depends. I don't know much about the USA Army, so that depends either a lot how strong the army is.
Well, here's the thing with the U.S. Army. Speaking as a veteran of the U.S. Army, the U.S. Army is as strong as the leader directs them. So we have a very, and I don't feel like saying this is hyperbole at all, but we have the most powerful army in the fucking world, not by numbers, but by technology and funding. And as somebody
Japan beat you by numbers, of course,
but
by marine purely Holland fucking wins all. There's no contest for that.
But by the numbers, China has
you have a
but by the numbers, China has us squashed like no contest. But if we were to go to war with just China and nobody else in the world could like interfere or take sides, we would squash China like fucking nothing. Because numbers don't make the battle.
Well, I was still saying, by Marine, Holland is still better, and that's why the EU army was.
Oh, no. Like, I feel
very close
to
the USA one.
I feel very confident that just a one-on-one, the United States would squash.
I'm talking about purely Marine, not the full.
Well, and that's not even fair to like take out. That's not even fair because our Marine.
Purely the Marines. Of course, I say Holland is mostly that's with water stuff. So of course, everything is border based. They're gonna be the best at.
But you can't point out. Hey, Cody, you can't pull out one like branch of the U.S. military and compare it. I don't feel like that's fair because the U.S. would never go against an entire country.
And I know that Germany have one of the best tanks in the world. So
look, all that matters is naval superiority, and that's what America has over everybody on the
America
planet.
has pretty military superiority over
everybody.
Like we're fucking like
an American strike group, American strike carrier group can obliterate an entire country.
Okay. We got two people.
Sorry.
It's fine. We got two people talking at a time. Madness, finish your point, and then I want Cody to counter that.
USA is just one big army, while EU have like smaller armies for countries combined as one big one. So that's why I kind of this pinpoint like what's like Germany have really great tanks, Holland have great marine and shit like that. So it is a bit like if you combine all the best of the best they have, they can go very strong and in some areas probably even go above USA in certain points of army. If they would go class, it will be very close match.
And I do feel like what I made point, like if we're going like branch to branch, it's a whole different. But no country is going to go branch to branch because it just
like combine the whole army thing.
Yeah, it doesn't
still close to each other.
It doesn't make sense to go branch to branch because like every fucking country has like a different level of their branches.
What's the best in every EU country? They're gonna take that.
I do feel like technologically speaking, and not numbers, obviously, because I could number off all kinds of countries that have us out. I have the U.S. out by numbers, but technologically speaking, I do feel like every branch of our military has superiority because of how much we dump into funding.
Mm-hmm.
So, Cody, I know you just joined, but you sound like you joined in a great spot because it sounds like you got a good a point to make. So let's hear what you got to say.
Well, the point I was making was like so we have naval superiority like by far over every country on the planet.
Agreed.
And we have our strike attack carrier groups are ridiculous. Like one group can annihilate an entire country with all the aircraft and weaponry between everything that's aboard those aircraft carrier groups. And there's 19 or how many? 21 aircraft carrier groups.
That sounds right. I'm not sure.
Running around the ocean, I believe. And the thing is, like, the United States is isolated from every other country in the world other than Canada and Mexico by the ocean.
Yep, that's true. That's a lot of the reason we haven't been attacked. Yeah.
In a theoretical war game, you got to beat the United States Navy first.
Yep.
Well, I mean, even if like the nukes got launched, you'd still have to deal with the Navy.
Good point to make is that even if a country successfully tried to launch an invasion against us, you can't do a land invasion because even if you try to do an aerial invasion, navally will shoot you down before you make it. You can the best you can hope for is a ground invasion, and as of current politics, as our current political state, you are not going to convince Canada or Mexico to covertly let you deploy ground troops and get them ready to go, because we would know that shit before like they ever even got close to the border. Because even if you try to like, well, covertly we're going to deploy a bunch of troops there, and then after a while we'll send them over the border or something like that. As soon as they arrive, America is going to be like, oh wait, what's this all about? because we're so fucking nosy all the time about everything that goes on everywhere in the world. Like, there's no way people are going to pull off some shit.
That's so true.
It's not going to happen. We're too fucking nosy. And
Can't
whether or not
nobody's business.
Yeah, and whether or not that's a good thing, especially considering the circumstances we were talking about, is a discussion for a whole other day. But like, as if you consider the current state, you know, like, we do not really have to fear a ground or an aerial. The best a country could hope for is sending nukes our way. And again, any nuke that's coming from a country that could actually be considered hostile is going to be shot down and taken out of commission before it ever reaches a dangerous vicinity to the U.S.
Chances are, yeah. Unless it's a super close submarine, the Soviets are good at submarine warfare, and they always have been.
And that's the thing. Like, if somebody, I feel like if a country was to invent a technology that we don't expect, yes, they could get a leg up, because I do feel like that has been an issue in the past when we're talking about the actual invention of submarines, or we're talking about because it was Germans, right? Like, submarines in World War One. That was the big deal we dealt with, and I think it was World War One. And I believe it was Germans who were the first ones to deploy that submarine technology, where that was an issue because we had boats out on the water and you couldn't see a submarine, so you couldn't prepare for a submarine, you know? And like, I feel like what it would take to catch America by surprise and to actually pull off a successful attack. And here's the thing, too. You'd have to pull off this successful initial attack. You'd have to come up with a new technology. And okay, not even necessary. You just have to like find the best blind spot, like 9/11. But the best you can do there is pull off an initial attack. You can't pull off continual attacks that way, and it won't work. Because I mean, look how much fucking freedom we've sacrificed in the name of safety because of fucking 9/11. You know, and I honestly do believe in that. That's an event. 9/11 is the event where the terrorists won ultimately, because we just fucking gave our government everything in the name of safety. And then even like with the recent like Second Amendment protests, like the March for Life and all that bullshit, there was an actual sign that said like, is freedom more important than your safety or some shit like that? And I was like, fuck you, lady. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. It was so insane. But there are people who legitimately believe it doesn't matter how much freedom we give up. It doesn't matter how much liberty we don't have, as long as we feel safe. Not as long as we actually are. Well, especially the way the U.S. is now, we can't ever actually legitimately just be safe all the time. You can never be safe all the time.
Yeah, that's impossible.
It's not even. It's not even America. It's any country. You can never go through your life just being able to guarantee safe. Yeah, I see Chaos is here. Welcome, Chaos. But you can't go through your life being like, yes, I am safe. It's not a guarantee. That will never be a guarantee, because there are always, like, you know, somebody could be driving a car like an asshole, or fuck, I don't know.
You can slip down a fucking stairs.
Yeah, like there could be all kinds
of. You can slip in the bathroom and you break your neck.
Yeah, exactly. Great point. You could slip in the goddamn bathroom. Like, you don't want the government to come in and make sure your tub is slip-proof.
I've asked Minding who hates Miracle more. He doesn't know which ones he hates more.
Right, but I mean, like, it's insane to like get this mindset of like, well, my country makes me safe, and that's like ultimately the point I want to get at with this is like going off of like a very recent sign from the Second Amendment protest back to even things like not necessarily World War II, but just everything that came out of it, like the Cold War, is we come to this kind of, like, this mindset of my country will make me safe. And every step that every disagreeable, and this comes down more to the party line, where like the party line is saying, because the rightists said this during Bush, the leftists said this during Obama, and the rightists are saying it again during Trump, is, you know, the questionable steps my president is taking are leading us to more safety, and we want to feel safe. So like the stupid shit Trump does, the dropping bombs on over like 3 times as many countries as Bush did with Obama, going to war with Iraq and Afghanistan in the first place with Bush, Clinton doing all the stupid shit he did in the Middle East. like all this shit. As long as the president has like the right fucking R or D next to their name, yeah, it's totally fine if they're doing all this questionable shit because it's in the interest of safety. And the problem is the real main problem comes in is if the next president can come in and they are on the opposing side, and that mindset immediately switches from this is in our best interest to this president is un-American or treason, like traitor or all this other shit. If your mind can switch that fast, the subject you're arguing about, you are fucking wrong on. Like if your mindset can change, like depending on who is in office, you're wrong. If it can change that easily, you're wrong. Yeah. Your initial assessment on that point is wrong, because if tomorrow, fucking like I don't know, Adam Kokesh or like Larry Sharp or or like Rand Paul or some other like libertarian mind, or Ron Paul or some libertarian, like very libertarian minded person went in office, them being in office wouldn't change like how I feel as a libertarian. It would just be more, I'd probably be more excited about some of the things we were doing as a libertarian, but it would be the same things I've been preaching about for, years now. So if your mindset can change that quickly, I do feel like that's something as an individual people need to examine and think for themselves for a second, for once in their life, think for themselves and be like,
it's very hard for some
yes,
people.
It's very hard for a lot of these people, but think for yourself for 1 second, for once in your life, and be like, okay, because now, fuck, I don't know who's gonna go for president in 2020, but Democrat A, because they're now in office, suddenly it's fine if we go to war with Russia. Think for a second for yourself.
Well,
wait a minute, wasn't I against this?
Well, whoever's in office always becomes pro-war. Like that party always becomes pro-war.
Whoever's in office,
that's the way it is. It's ridiculous.
Well, and that's what I was saying exactly, Cody. What I was saying earlier was like, we went from Bush right wing to pro-war, from Obama left wing to pro-war, to Trump right wing to pro-war again. And when you can look back, and you don't even have to look back that far currently, because you can see the fucking paradigm shift from Obama to Trump, how quickly people change their fucking minds just because somebody had the R or D after their name.
But the war stuff began mostly with his second term. And but he started things like we have to go to war. We have to go to war. That's why many people voted for him.
No.
But with Obama and Trump, they both were like, we shouldn't go to war. And in the end, they lied. Well, Obama at least lied so far.
No. Like, because Bush went into war the year, like, September 11th. So he went to war, like, a year after his inauguration. Not a full year, but, for just time's sake. He went to war about a year after his. So the left was already against that for the most part. So it wasn't even his first term. Honestly, I'm the only reason I feel like Bush ever.
He gave before his second term, where he was like, "We have to go to war, and we have to go," and that's why so many people voted for him.
But
with Obama and Trump, it was the complete opposite. Many people voted for them because they were anti-war.
I don't even think that's it. I honestly, the only reason Bush was voted in second office, the only reason Bush was voted in the second time was because fucking John goddamn Kerry was his fucking running mate, which was like just the stupidest asshole ever. Why was Obama? Okay, hold on. Just hold on. Let me finish this one point. Why was Obama voted into office? Because McCain was his running mate, and it just made everybody think of Bush again. So they're like, no, we don't want Bush, we want Obama. Hold on. Why was Obama voted in the second time into office? Because they picked fucking Mitt Romney, who was the vice president, who was the fucking vice president to the guy who lost to Obama. Like, who? Or no, he wasn't his wife. But he was the guy that lost to the guy who lost to Obama. He lost to fucking John McCain the first term. He lost to Obama the second term. Why was anybody surprised that would happen? That he lost to the guy that lost to Obama? Like, yeah, no fucking shit, Mitt Romney. And here's the thing. My mindset during that period of time, I voted for Mitt Romney. you know, and I'm like looking back, I'm like, I was dumbass. Nobody's gonna vote for Mitt Romney, seriously. And then we look back, of course there was a paradigm shift towards Trump. And then I will not be surprised because the fucking left picked Hillary Clinton, one of the most corrupt politicians in all of American history. And I would not be surprised if their fucking 2020 candidate is just as bad or almost as bad.
It's gonna be worse.
The rumors have it
maybe worse. I would love to see
worse. It's going to be the 2021 for Democrats, but
it's gonna be worse.
Off the top of my head,
they're gonna lose.
No, seriously though, I would like to hear everybody's opinion on this real quick. Who would be worse than Hillary Clinton to run for 2020?
Al Gore.
Bernie Sanders.
Elizabeth Warren.
I would say Oprah because it will be same old. Only difference is that it will be vote for me because I'm woman and I'm black.
Okay, Elizabeth Warren would Al Gore. Oh, God, I can't even imagine.
Elizabeth Warren. Al Gore is done. I mean, Al Gore is.
No, Al Gore is done, but there will be so many man bear pig memes for that election. It would be fucking amazing. I would love that. Like, I want Al Gore to run for that reason.
Can I say something real quick too about something you said earlier?
Maxine Waters, somebody brought up in the chat. Brandy brought up in the chat. Maxine Waters is somebody who has been gaining.
Kamala Harris.
Yeah. I do feel like the top running would be Elizabeth Warren. That is a
Cory Booker.
I think like I do feel like the left is going to try to pick a woman again, possibly because they feel like that's going to get.
I would probably say many will push for Oprah. That's what many people want to go.
Okay, if
She's not going to run.
I will say this: Oprah's whole mentor will basically be like Hillary. The only difference is instead of like vote for me because I'm a woman, it will be vote for me because I'm a woman and I'm black.
Yeah, no. Like here's the thing: if Oprah runs, the left has to take back everything they've said against Trump about him being a TV show person or like a celebrity.
They will.
Because that was such a big deal against him. Like I can't believe a TV show reality host is now a president. And it's like, and you want fucking Oprah Winfrey to be president? How is that any better? Oprah Winfrey is not a politician. Donald Trump is not a politician. Why are like okay. Like real quick, like I understand and I do believe that part of the reason that there's actually so little limitations on who can be president is because the idea is supposed to be that anybody could become president. We realize that when Reagan became president, that an actor could become president, and that there's not like you have to be a specific archetype to become president. As long as you can convince the nation, you can be president. But the problem
wasn't Reagan governor of California before he became president?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean,
it wasn't like he was coming from fucking
I want to say something. Oprah was on the Late Show with James Corden, and she said there at least then, but she didn't want to go, but that he was training someone for the 2024 one. And that really worries me because if he's going to train someone for the president-elect, that means he's probably going to get someone who's far worse even than she would be.
Okay,
it really fucking terrifies me.
If I did have to pick like what politician could possibly be worse than Clinton, it probably would be Elizabeth Warren because fuck Elizabeth Warren. But
Cory Booker.
I honestly I don't know enough about that person, but I do believe the whole point of like the lax limitations on the presidency is supposed to be the idea that the president could be anybody, that anybody can grow up, any American citizen can grow up and become the president. But I do
I can never become one.
I do think though any natural born American citizen. I do believe though that our current state and society of where we live mostly on our phones and our computers, and we mostly live through we don't live through actual like information, we live through headlines. And this is something I brought up on another live stream was people mostly read the headlines of something, not the actual meat of the story. So we're a society that lives on headlines and quick information and fucking like Snopes and PolitiFact and all this shit that like we like, no, I don't have to actually like research and double check my information. I looked it up on Snopes. Why should I? Who cares if they're lying to me?
Snopes told me this isn't true, so it's not
exactly.
True.
And I've gone into
Snopes, Jesus.
I've gone into detail why if Snopes, because they have admittedly in the past flat out lied and the reason being that they want people to research on their own.
Yeah.
So like I don't believe in but we live in a society that believes, like, if Snopes says it's true, then it's true. If this says it's true, then it's true. Like, you don't have to really research. You don't have to look into information, you know. And we live in a state of perpetual media bias from whether it's the right or the left. And yes, mostly the mainstream media right now is leaning to the left, but there are a lot of like heavy right political bias in news sites. So we live in a society if you live in a society like that, you can take, it doesn't really matter, because I do feel like the initial intent of the lax presidential and here's, I'm not arguing for more restraints on the presidency, but
I am.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm not arguing for more restraints on the eligibility of the president. I'm always arguing for more restraints on the president in general because they have way too much power. But I'm not arguing for more restraints on the eligibility of the president. But you can look back and see where that has some merit. That, like, you know, anybody can grow up and become the president. But now it's not. We're not looking at politics on who is going to be our president. We're looking at who is the most popular and who is the best compared to B. You know, like, is A better compared to B, or is B better compared to A? Because we have the dual party system in America now. So when, you know, we've completely forgotten what it's like to look at candidates across the board and decide who best represents me as a person, who can best lean this country in a better direction. And now it's more about either who is more popular and who is the lesser of two evils, which is a whole other thing.
I think that's more of it is the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. That's a huge bit of it.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, the last election was, you know, who do you fear the least is going to screw things up?
Yep.
Because between Trump and Hillary, you got two sides of the same coin there. Yeah. And to get back to, you know, our original point talking about war, one thing that I wanted to bring up is that I think Americans as a whole, we have this issue where we don't view war as being that big of a deal in a lot of areas because we have oceans on both sides. So it never actually comes here. So the average person walking down the street, if you tell them we're going to go to war with Syria, they don't care. And it doesn't affect them at all because it's happening somewhere else to someone they don't know. And so why do they even care? Whereas if we were in a situation where we had borders that could be crossed and we did have, you know, a potential enemy that could come at us, then things would be a little bit different. Plus, you have to understand that the narrative that they've been pushing with the military is they're out there keeping us safe. They're fighting for our freedoms. Well, there's nobody trying to take my freedom away in Afghanistan. There's nobody that's trying to take my freedom away in Yemen, but we'll bomb the hell out of them just because, you know, these missiles have to be manufactured by someone that's a contractor for the government, and we need to make sure that they can make more so we can pay them more.
Tim, you bring up like a couple of amazing points, and I'm going to touch on them real quick, and then I'm going to open up to the rest of the group so everybody gets a chance to chime in on these points. And I want to focus on these points. I think there's two main points I want to focus on out of what you said, and I want to make sure everybody in the group and even in the chat, if you have something to say, feel free to type it in. I will try to make sure I get to it. But these 2 points right now, the first point that Tim made that was just absolutely fantastic is the U.S. does not live in a war country. We don't live in a country where we actually worry about the threat of war, where, like,
I'd be lucky.
For us, for the average United States citizen, the idea of going to war doesn't actually mean experiencing war. It means people that represent your country are going to different places in the different places in the world, where, like, they're going to go fight other people. You know, that's what going to war means for the average American. It doesn't mean you have to experience that war, feel the fear or the devastation or anything like that of, like, having your home destroyed or your family murdered or anything like that. You don't worry about that if, like, your country's going to war because it's some other people handling it on the other side of the world. Who gives a fuck? You know, it's out of your mind. It is not something you need to ever care about. So that's an excellent point, and that's one of the things I do definitely want to open up to the group, and we'll open that up in just a second. The second thing you pointed out and this is something I brought up on other live streams, like on Half of Supremacy. I think I brought it up briefly on the Shitlord Preachers with Amos, Joseph, and Brooke. And then I talked about it on here before, where just the country is this country and their political party and their just politicians are very corrupt in how we spend the tax dollars that they get.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this personally because I worked for the government as both in the military and both as a contractor. And as you know, just ask fucking Nico or Shane on YouTube or ask Amos. Like, I can go into like great detail about how the government wastes your fucking money day in and day out. Like, I have very I have a very specific. I could give you an average week in my and I could like devote a whole stream to this probably, and I'm not going to do it now because it's going to totally derail everything. But I could give you an average week of my time working as a contractor for the military, and then it'll blow your mind. And then once I tell you that was not just once a week in my time, that was every week in my time throughout an entire year. And one base at the military compared to all the other bases that were doing the exact same thing every fucking week. And it would just, like, your head will explode because it's just like, Jesus Christ, that's so much fucking money wasted. Mm-hmm. So the military becomes so much more concerned about, and part of these things when I mentioned this is people were like, well, how can our government like waste so much money? And I'm like, well, it's because they promise these contractors this, specific job. And it's not because it's the best, most efficient way of doing it. It's not because the people that we're giving the job to are the best for the job. It's just because the government has these backdoor deals with these companies that are profiteering off of the war, basically. And we give these contracts to them, and we have to alter how we do business, how we do global politics and global business to make sure these companies don't get left out in the dust. So the second point I feel that Tim brought up is great is that, we're perpetually doing things that require more munitions and more weapons and more companies to, pump out products. And even though, like, as I've mentioned multiple times, the government goes for like the cheapest bidder. They go for whoever's going to make weapons or whoever's going to do this for the cheapest, but they do make these deals. And if these deals go away, these businesses are basically fucked because they rely on the government. So the government does have these weird, shady deals to keep these businesses perpetually going, keep them like full, keep us buying munitions and all this stuff. And I do honestly feel like, and I'm going to pull a term from Metal Gear Solid 4 for a second, but there's a war economy. There's an economy within the United States and the rest of the globe that is totally reliant upon perpetual war. And if we just suddenly, and this is something I want to have a discussion with, and I've talked to this about Shane and Nico from Hapo Supremacy, and whenever I'm able to do this, I want to make sure I have them on. But I do want to devote a whole stream to, like, what would happen to the United States, just the United States alone, like, forget about everybody else, but it would be devastating for other countries too that actually manufacture stuff. But what would happen in the United States alone if, like, all wars just suddenly ceased? We would have a major economic shift. Companies that are having a steady flow of cash would suddenly be out of business. We'd be all over the fucking place. It would be like weird and bizarre. And I honestly don't think
smoking. But
I don't think one specific person, the best economic mind, could actually predict specifically what would happen. And then just before I turn this over to the rest of the chat, real quick, there's one more point that I do feel was made by Brandy in the chat that, we go through all this stuff, a lot of the we're engaged in all these wars in the interest of the betterment of other people. Like, war is not what we want, but if we don't go to war, it's for if we don't go to war, then this other country is going to be all fucked up. So our country and a lot of our whoever's, depending on who is office, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats that are pro-war at the time, or always seem to be the mindset that we have to worry about everyone else's wars. We have to worry about like the other countries that are in war, and we have to worry about them. And I do feel like it shifts this like blame. It shifts the it shifts the whole argument towards like not whether our governments are fucked up. It's this other country that's fucked up. It's this other country that's at war, and we have to go help them. You know, that's why it's, you know, they're the ones that are. If it was only for them, you know, we'd be fine, kind of thing. And like we don't stop to like feedback and be like, oh shit, like we're the ones that are help perpetuating this, especially in the Middle East. Yeah, and then another comment real quick is that we're constantly policing people that don't want to be policed. That's like a huge part of what our country does, is that we feel like we have to go out, we have to correct the problems that other countries are making, and instead of just even if I wanted to be like pro doing that, you know, I couldn't still be pro like every engagement we go in, because it's like we don't just go and correct a problem, we go and correct a problem and then stay there forever and like try to maintain the aftermath of our fucking involvement. Like how many of our own enemies have we created in the Middle East? It gets so fucking crazy. And we just kind of keep perpetuating the cycle. So real quick, I do want to, the first thing I want to open up to was the first topic I talked about from what Tim had said. So I don't know if anybody is saving anything real quick, because I see like some of you guys look like you really want to have something to say. So I'm sorry for like taking up so much time real quick, but jump in if you got something real quick. Nobody?
Okay. Yeah, I got one more thing. When we were talking about earlier how you know, for the United States to be attacked on our soil, you were talking about the possibility of submarines, but I think that we need to look towards more current and future technologies rather than past technologies, because it's possible to drop an EMP in the atmosphere and just completely wipe out the power grid on the East Coast or West Coast. And if you did that, then you know you could knock it out for days, and you could knock out like, you know, pretty much all of our surveillance equipment at that point, and you could get ships over here, and you know you could have a ground invasion within a few days. Now,
real quick, Tim, to piggyback off of that, and then I'll let you finish, and then I want you to be the first one to comment on what I'm about to say. I'm in agreement with you. I do agree that like if we're gonna, as far as our military is concerned, if we're gonna look as far as threats, we cannot look backwards as far as like what has been a threat, because if it has been a threat, like if it has been a threat means it still is a threat. Like, you know, we'd actually be on the lookout for it. But we've pretty much able to counter most past technology, and we have the most technologically advanced military there is in the entire world because of the amount of funding we throw at them. So for first, Tim, as soon as I finish this point, I want Tim to jump back in with if you have more to your point, I want you to go for it, and then if you want to counter or add on to my point that I'm about to make. Would for war go, like just as far as like if we were to like kind of pull back from trying to engage with the rest of the world, does that mean we have to pull back like military funding? Do we have to pull back military research, or just even like politically, like does that mean we have to stop trying to advance like the possibility of future, like what everybody else might do? Or should we pull it back entirely and just ignore the rest of the world, basically kind of become more isolationist? Or should we continue to not necessarily build an army to counteract these, but like, what's the word I'm looking for? Anticipate some of these possible technological shifts and that might give a country the advantage over going to war with us? Or would pulling back entirely take away the incentive for countries to go to war with us? So that's the point I want to make. Tim, I want you to jump in first, and then we'll try to give everybody else a chance to jump in on that.
Okay, well, first of all, I think that there are certain areas if we pull back from, that would take away the incentive for some countries to want to have a conflict with the United States. I mean, there are countries that your people in countries that absolutely hate the United States because of our presence there. I think we have what is it, over 800 bases around the world. That's just
Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but it's something crazy like that. It's insane.
Yeah, it's somewhere around 800. It's just too many. There's just no reason for it. I do think that we should invest in technologies, and we should look at making sure that we have a strong and improved military instead of just constantly maintaining equipment that is outdated and obsolete. And like I said with the EMP, think about it like this though. We had that Chinese satellite that was falling out of the sky recently, and nobody knew where it was going to land.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can't track that, then there is a possibility that China or Russia or anyone that had the technology could shoot something up in the atmosphere, let it sit there for a while, and then just drop it right down on top of us, and we probably wouldn't be able to track it at this point. So yeah, we should invest in the technologies in order to keep ourselves safe, but at the same time, we don't need to overspend and spend so much as we are now, where it's just kind of unnecessary in some points.
All right. No, that's a very excellent point. Chaos, if you don't mind, you've been kind of silent since you dropped in. Do you got anything to add?
Not really.
Okay. I know we've been kind of like heavily on the war topic, so I don't know how much like you got input you got on that aspect. Mike, do you got anything to add to that real quick?
I agree with what
I would say as far as our military goes, if we want to get to like a very good point, is there like, whether or not, like, should we pull back our military intervention? Should we continue to invest regardless of whether we do or don't pull back our military intervention? Should we continue to push military technology or at least possibly anticipate military technology?
Well, one argument that people make is that, we have to spend as much as we do on our military for it to be as strong as it is. And I think, no, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like what Tim said, we invest more in technology and less in what we're spending money on now. I mean,
Oh, real quick, I do want to dive in because this is something I haven't had the chance to look up. It's a recent thought I've had, but as a veteran who actually goes to the VA, I honestly don't know how much of our military budget goes towards veterans. Does anybody know any? Like,
towards veterans?
Yeah,
is that they don't give a crap about veterans?
but I know that much. I know that much being a veteran that goes to the VA and gets ignored all the time. But as far as like VA budget, is that wrapped up under the military budget, or is that like a whole separate deal? Does anybody know that?
I think it's separate.
Okay. I need to look that up. I
think it's separate. I think military budget goes towards weapon systems, paying the military, funding every unit around the world. I think that's everything, and everything that everything with the contractors also. I don't think any of that. I think the Veterans Administration has its own budget, and I don't think they see anything from the military. To be honest with you, I could be wrong, but I don't think they do.
I'm gonna try to look that up now. But if you want to continue on your primary point, Mike, go ahead.
I was saying earlier that I mean, we could pull back some of what we have spread around the world, and I think we would be okay. I mean, I understand that there's a certain strategy to having bases around the world, but I mean, we have multiple bases in various countries. I mean, like, how many bases do we have in Germany?
I think it's 13.
Real quick, I just want to jump in. I can't answer my initial inquiry, but I do know apparently currently as of 2017, the average budget of the Department of Veteran Affairs is $180 billion.
What?
That's what I'm seeing right now.
What does that go to?
I'm assuming retirement mostly, and just a bunch of doctors that don't give a fuck.
I think retirees are paid through DOD.
Do you? Okay, because that would cut a lot. Because like I get I don't get retirement pay, but I get a compensation pay.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, it goes towards compensation, and we have a lot of veterans in this country. But I think everyone who's retired is paid by DOD and not by the
because my compensation rate, like my disability rating through the VA is so high. I actually get basically anything I go to the VA, I want to get cared for, I get taken care of. I don't have to pay for technically. But like if your compensation rate or disability rating is low, you still have to pay for things. it's this weird mess, but I do feel like a lot of it just goes to absolute fucking nonsense too. I feel like that's probably something for a whole nother stream, to be honest. Because if we're going to talk about the VA, like, I will go on for fucking days about how bullshit they are. Going out of my fucking experience. Like, I think go check out the Shitlord Preachers podcast on Joseph Amos's stream, and you will, like, go check out, I think it's at Amos Joe, Joe, on Twitter. And then you can see his YouTube channel from there, and go check out the stream where I joined him. I went into a lot of detail about my experience with the VA and why I hate it so much. So if you're curious at all, go check out, like, first of all, go like his Twitter page and then sub to his YouTube page for sure. But go check that out if you're curious at all about how, like, fucking dysfunctional the VA is, because I go into pretty good detail. But yeah, like, that's interesting. Like, whether or not they're different budgets compared to the military, but then especially if it's different compared to the military, how much are we fucking spending on that? Like, just absolute bullshit.
Here's one question.
Go ahead.
I found a breakdown for that.
Well, real quick, let Mike go with his question, Tim, and then we'll come back to you.
How much are the people in the upper echelon of the VA getting paid each year?
Yes. That's a great question. I do feel like that is something I want to save for another stream, because I feel like there's a whole thing.
The VA, just like anything else, is a big bloated bureaucracy, and it like most other bureaucracies that we have in this government. I mean, the people at the top are seeing most of the money that goes to that specific department. I think the VA is the same.
Yeah. No, I do feel like, and this is something, if I can actually get like a VA administrator on the stream, that would be fucking amazing. But I do want to do a whole stream on the VA and just like how much money we burn consistently on absolute bullshit, and how much of that money probably goes towards administrators that like Congress vote for their own raise kind of shit, you know? But I feel like that we're getting into a rabbit hole there that's going to go like way off topic. So, Mike, if you have if you want to wrap up your point real quick, or you have a final point you want to make, and then I want to transfer to Tim, because I know he had something to say.
What was I talking about before the VA? Was I talking about military bases?
Yes.
Yeah. Tim said that there are 13 military bases in Germany, and I mean, we have various military bases in other countries around Europe. We have various military bases in Japan, and I mean, do we really need that many bases in one country?
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. Well, and that's part of the thing, like with Korea, you know, like we're not at war with North Korea, but we still have bases in South Korea, you know, kind of thing. It's like we have bases all over the fucking world where there's just no point in us really being there. But that's just kind of this perpetual like global policing of the entire world where we feel like we can't not have bases. Crazy. Yeah. Was that the end of your thing, Mike?
Yeah, that was the end of my point.
Tim, sorry for holding you off so long, Tim. What do you got? I mean,
that's okay. What I found was that the estimated U.S. military spending is $886 billion.
Holy shit!
That's for the fiscal year 2019, and that comes out to Department of Veterans Affairs is $83.1 billion. The State Department's $28.3. And Homeland Security is $46 billion. Now, here's the thing. I've worked in healthcare for like 2 decades now, and what I think we should do is like just get rid of the VA and give every veteran a TRICARE for Life card. Let you go wherever the hell you want to go. See whatever doctor you want to see.
Real quick, Paleo, are you a vet?
A lot more sense.
Paleo, Tim, sorry, real quick, are you a vet?
No, actually, yeah, I applied. I had asthma when I was a kid, and they told me to go away. And I was like,
that sounds like the Army, yeah.
I scored a 96 on my ASVAB, so
yeah. Damn, dude. Yeah, I was like in the low, like, or the high 90s, or no, it was like 100 and something. I can't remember. I got like really high. I remember that because I had a buddy that went to the fucking infantry, and he had like almost the lowest possible score you could have. Which, if you have almost the lowest possible, if you have like the lowest possible score, pretty much the only thing you could do is the infantry. and I got like a much higher score. It was like in the low hundreds, and they were like, "Yeah, you can do all this stuff," but I was colorblind, so they're like, "But you can't go in the infantry." Like, what? Yeah, it was fucking weird.
My son was in the Army. He just got out last year.
Oh Jesus, how old is he?
He's 23.
Okay. I didn't mean to date you there, Kim, but I was just curious. But no, yeah. As anybody who's tuned into like any of the streams I do, or like paid attention to my Twitter account for more than like 5 minutes, anybody would know that I'm a vet. I'm an Army vet for 5 years. I was in for 5 years. So I'm very vocal about my problems with the VA and stuff like that. But I do agree, like with what what Tim was saying, is something that I brought up on the streams, because a lot of people like the VA is actually what makes me very anti healthcare. Which again, if you want to know more, go check out at Amos Joe on Twitter. Look at I can't remember what his YouTube handle is off the top of me, but you can see his YouTube handle there from Twitter. Go check out his YouTube. Go see the interview I did with him and Brooke. I went into a lot of detail on this, but the part of the reason I'm very anti-healthcare is because of my experience with the VA. And then people are always like, "Well, we're not talking about the like what the VA does. We're talking about like government health insurance." I'm like, no. Look at
thing, though.
Well, there's two things. There's the two things that the VA has done actually. For one, there's the choice program, which is actually has become so short of funding. They either have closed it or it's like under threat of being gone forever, where you're allowed to just go to any doctor you want as long as the VA approves it and is willing to pay for it. But it's so fucked up and so like horribly managed.
Oh, you froze.
The thing I always bring up to anybody who is like, "Oh, we're not wanting government-run hospitals like the VA. We want government-run health insurance." Bring up TRICARE. TRICARE, and this is what retired veterans and medically retired veterans and their families get, or even if it's just like families currently enlisted in the military and stuff, like the spouse of a person currently enlisted in the Army, they get TRICARE, and they're able to go see doctors outside the VA, but TRICARE is their insurance company that pays for it, and it's a government-run insurance thing. And if you go to like some, I would encourage anybody in the U.S. to do this. Go to some fucking local doctors and ask them if they currently accept TRICARE insurance. And you'd be surprised. Like the amount of doctors that accept TRICARE are dwindling because TRICARE doesn't pay on time. Half the time, it's a fight for a doctor's office to get TRICARE to actually pay for their expenses. And as my wife, who's a mental health insurance, and she's talked to a lot of people, and like just regular insurance companies don't want to pay. And it's a struggle for any doctor to deal with insurance companies. But when it comes to TRICARE, apparently it's so fucking bad. Some doctors have started refusing TRICARE because it is so fucking bad, because the government sucks so much at managing a health insurance for a small fraction of the entire country. The government can't handle.
Well,
so, yeah, I'm just like, you guys, like anybody suggesting that they do it for the whole country, like you're fucking stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. You're dumb. Shut it. That's like,
well, I think that would be a topic for another stream, because I mean I can go into a lot of detail about how screwed up the government-run healthcare is, and between TRICARE and Medicaid and Medicare, it's a disaster. You have no idea how bad it is. I do feel like from one point, but it's much worse than what you think.
I do feel like this would be a great, I kind of want to like round back around to the get it back to the regular topic of the stream, but this would be a great topic for like a primary topic for a stream where we can actually go into all the intricacies of government health versus private health, and figure out like what we can hammer all this stuff out. Then I do feel like that would be a great discussion. But if anybody has a segue back into fucking Donald Trump and World War III, like, let's hear it. If anybody's got a way to like lead back towards there.
Well, one thing that I can point out though is that if we do have any type of a major conflict, you are going to have more veterans and more veterans with injuries who are going to have to deal with the VA after the fact, and they're going to have to deal with this, and that is something you just don't want to do.
That's a great point, Tim, actually, and that's a great segue, actually. That like going back into like entering any conflict overseas where we actually have to put fucking boots on ground. And if anybody doesn't know what that means deploying troops where they actually their feet touch the ground of the foreign country we're going to war with. Anytime you're having that, you are gonna have, whether or not it's even like, you know, like it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter how long they're there. If somebody's boots touch ground and it's a situation where you could say, like, we had soldiers in this country, somebody's going to come back with a claim. And even if they don't claim for that, like every fucking country we go to war with, every time we put boots on ground, you increase the potential for military claims where they can claim for this or that, for PTSD or for mental health stuff or Purple Hearts or anything. You increase that potential. So this whole, you know, like every time we're like pushing for a war with another country, what we are also doing, and if you want to think about it in a fiscal sense, you know, we are increasing our budgets and how much we can actually spend on this kind of stuff, especially if we're separating, and because we brought it up earlier, especially if we're separating the military and the VA budget as two separate things. You're increasing the budget of one. You're increasing the potential budget every year for one by going to war.
And what you got to understand too, it's that not just a one-time expense because of you know, PTSD and injuries. You're looking at ongoing expenses that are going to last years. So it's not just, oh, we went to war and we spent this much money. It's no, we have casualties of that. We've got people that have come back with injuries. We've got people that have come back with trauma, and now we're paying for these people's health care for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and it's like I said before. Like for those of you watching that don't know, the VA and the government and the military grades you like post. If you're retired, you're probably higher enough, but like they grade you on a percentage scale. For me, I'm actually considered 100% disabled because of like a mixture of things. But at one point, I was only considered like 30% disabled, and then I was considered like 60% disabled. Some people, like a person coming out with like really bad knee problems, might get like 20% or 30% disabled. Like they give you a percentage, and based on what your percentage is, like after, I think it's 30, but after a certain percentage, they, you know, like below a certain percentage, you have to pay. You have to do like a copay to go to the VA, which if you didn't have to go to the VA, I don't know why anybody would voluntarily go there, but you have to pay like a copay to go to the VA as if it was like your insurance. And even the VA is asking for insurance now. It's so insane. But, you know, it's like paying a copay, and then after a certain percentage, you're able to go there for free. Like, as long as it's related to like specific injuries from the service, and then after a certain percentage, you can go there for free for anything. Currently that's where I'm at. But like they rate you on a percentage specific to how, what your like what happened during the service. So like the more you increase the risk factor for the average military service member, the more you are certainly going to increase the average percentage for veterans. And then once you increase that percentage, like based on that certain percentage, the higher percentage, the more likely you have a lifelong problems. You know, they don't give you a high percentage because you have an acute issue. It's because you have a continuous issue that just doesn't stop or doesn't go away, or possibly can't even be treated, or like treated very easily. For my case, like it's like a mixture of like mental health and like sleep and physical health stuff, but this weird mixture.
Sleep.
Like, yeah, exactly. That's how I feel half the time. But it brought me up to like like temporary. I forget what they called it. Something stupid like unemployable or something, this shit like that. But it brings me up to like 100, but like where I'm at, you know, like because the Viet considers like the majority of the problems I have to be like non-treatable or not treatable in the short term, where they can just send me to a doctor and then it's fine, where it's like he's going to need like continuous care for a certain number of years or a long time before it's better. So back to that point, back to the point is, you know, increasing the risk factor to your service members by deploying increases in the long term, like in a very long term, increases the budget of caring for those veterans once they're out of the service, because the more that are exposed to actual conflicts, the more PTSD and PTSD is not something you can just cure. It's not something you just fix, you know, for a lot of veterans. And as somebody who
cope with it.
Yes, as somebody who actually does support groups for veterans, you know, you learn to cope with it. You don't treat it. You don't fix it. You know, you don't make it go away. You figure out how to live with it, kind of thing. So it's also like, because I do feel like, because in the long, like the short term, a lot of people get blinded by the politics of an invasion or an intervention in a conflict, and we don't think about the long terms of it for both the people or fiscally or anything like that. You know, we don't think about how it affects our veterans, how it affects our service members. Fiscally, in the long run, can we as a country even sustain that kind of stuff?
Well, I think that once again goes back to the fact that there's no war on our shores. Whereas, you know, you can see pictures and you can see video of other countries where you have bombed out buildings, where you have roads that are destroyed, where you have entire neighborhoods and cities that are just devastated. Here you see none of that, so there's no visual reminder for people. And so as long as there's no visual reminder for people, and they don't personally know a veteran and they don't personally come across them, then they just turn a blind eye to it, and it's just no big deal to them. And so they don't pay any attention to the taxes that are taken out of their paycheck. They don't pay any attention.
Of course not. Go ahead. Sorry. Well, okay, real quick, Tim. I would like, because I feel like that swings back around and connects to one of your initial points, is that for the average American citizen, the concept of war doesn't personally affect them. So, and Chaos, if you got to head out, it's okay, Chaos, if you got to head out. I'm actually going to contact you for a possible Sunday stream, but I'll catch up with you and message you on that.
Okay.
Thanks for stopping by. I know this is like a weird topic, and it's probably not in your... Yeah.
I just don't feel like I know enough about the subject.
That's totally fine. I appreciate you stopping by. Good night, Chaos. I really appreciate you stopping by, and I'll keep in touch.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Bye. So yeah, but back to your point, Tim, though, I do feel like it connects with one of your earlier points. So like we're as the average American citizen doesn't actually see the implications of going to war. They don't see, you know, they can't feel it. It doesn't feel real to them. You know, that seeing it on the news is different from like looking out your fucking window and being like, holy shit. Those are two different scenarios. And talking with a veteran who's had to like shoot people and take a fucking life, you know, like actually kill somebody, whether, you know, it was in a situation where it was like, if I don't kill this person, they're going to kill me and everybody around me. And not just people, but I'm talking like we're you know, I'm like, I talk to veterans every Wednesday night. You know, I've talked to veterans who have had to kill children, you know, because it was a kid with an AK-47. And if they didn't take out that kid, they were going to die, kind of thing, you know. And it fucking
fight or flight.
Yeah, it killed these people. Like it hurt them. Like it like tore them down to the core, like so bad, you know. But the average American citizen, you know, even, you know, they're sitting at home, they're looking at the news on CNN or Fox News, and they don't think about what the worst possible implications of war actually are, or like what us sending soldiers overseas to some fucking God knows, like, why the hell would we go to their country, you know, what that actually results in. And once you've actually had to like actually do that either yourself or talk to those kinds of people, you know, and I would encourage anybody to actually like speak with veterans, you know, like don't push them to reveal information they don't want to, because some of it might be hard for some of them. But if any vet you know is comfortable with it, talk to them. Get an idea of what that was like, because it sucks for these people. And then, like, you know, you have your average American voter who's more concerned about whether or not the president has an R or a D after their name. And that's what fucking, like, kills me, is, like, that's who is deciding who is in charge, who is deciding the fate for these people who go overseas. And, you know, it's more of whether they're Republican or Democrat, as opposed to whether or not, like, putting these people in harm's way is worth it.
Yeah, but I think Rand Paul had one of the best points today, where he was saying that the power to go to war needs to reside completely with Congress, and the president shouldn't be overstepping those bounds.
Yes.
And right now, the president has too much power to just say, "Hey, let's throw some missiles over here," which should be considered an act of war.
Yes,
But
definitely.
it's just not. It's just, you know, they don't even deem it war. They call it a military conflict or a military action.
And
I'm sorry, if you drop missiles into
Yes.
the middle of Florida, then from another country, that's an act of war. So how is it not an act of war if we drop missiles into the middle of Damascus?
Exactly. Real quick, going back to like a tweet I made earlier today was, you know, Obama changed the definition of war because he dropped bombs. He dropped bombs on over 3 times as many countries as Bush, and nobody called it war. Everybody was like, oh, Obama's the anti-war president. He's still considered that, even though we went to war with way more countries. But I'm like, okay, let's double back and look at fucking 9/11 and the initial going to war of Afghanistan. If fucking dropping bombs or attacking a country isn't a declaration of war, why in the goddamn fuck did we ever go to Afghanistan? You know, or even Iraq? Because it's like, they didn't meet those qualifications that so many people feel like other countries need to meet for us, you know.
Well, if you go by the narrative that with the 9/11 hijackers, 19 of them were from Saudi Arabia. So if they wanted to declare war, then they should have declared war in Saudi Arabia. But they can't do that because Saudi Arabia houses both Mecca and Medina. So
politics.
They're going to war with Islam, and you just can't have that.
No, of course not. Yeah, it's nuts when you think about the politics of these situations, and I think a lot of people forget how much politics play a part when it comes to actually like legitimate war, like putting boots on ground in a country and attacking people that live on that soil. You know, it's a point that Tim has made more than once, and I feel like it is such a great point that, you know, people are so far removed from the consequences of those kinds of actions that we can't comprehend what it's actually like to live.
When exactly did Obama change the meaning of the word meaning of war?
I think the initial thing was during Libya when we actually
when was it exactly?
I can't remember the year, but it was I believe it was during Libya. We put boots on ground.
Was it like 2 years ago? Because then I was in my deep state depression.
No, it was
a lot of things went over my fucking head.
It was like if anybody knows the exact year, the whole like when the Libya thing.
I can't remember anything about Libya, so.
I can't remember when it exactly started. If anybody knows,
2010.
Yeah, like 9 or 10, 2009 or 10. Yeah, this sounds about right. But we actually put boots on ground in Libya. We actually like were firing like handheld fucking like missile launchers into Libya. All this shit. Like we went to fucking war with Libya. But no, it was just considered a conflict. Obama changed the fucking definition of war so he could keep us in Libya to depose.
That was in Obama's early years, right?
Yeah, but what was it? Gaddafi or what was the guy that?
Gaddafi died in 2011.
Oh, okay. I moved in that place.
That was the whole thing we were doing in Libya, and they just basically changed the definition of war. So like, because the president, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but the president has like I think like 30 days where he can deploy troops without congressional approval, like for war purposes. But he went past that, and basically they fucking just changed the definition of war, so he didn't need congressional approval. Because why not?
The NCAP guy lost his internet.
Oh yeah, Cody just dropped off. He might have lost his
name. Yeah, he just posted in the group.
Well, if nobody minds, I'm gonna try to wrap this stream up around in like 9 minutes because I gotta get some sleep, so I got stuff to do. Yeah, Viking just said, yeah, I know. Sleep just is ridiculous. But no, I'm like in this weird, like, I won't go into it now, but like one of these days, I could tell you guys if you guys want to know, I can give you all the insides of my crazy fucking sleep problems I have in the live stream and the chat we have. But yeah, it is crazy. Dude. I do feel like, and the point that Tim has brought up several times, like I feel like if anything, I feel like this is the point I want anybody who watches this stream to take home with them and to really think about and to like circle around to your friends and your family and just keep it going is, the average citizen, the average person making these like, well, this is what we should do and this is what we should do globally. Do you really know what it's like to be that person, to live in that world where the U.S. is coming after your country because of something some other people in your country are doing? And that's what I want to say is like, let's see, we're going to war with the country, like nobody says we're going. We went to war with Afghanistan because of the Taliban, right? Everybody says the Taliban, but how many people, if you ask, let's say Afghanistan compared to the Taliban, everybody thinks of the war on Afghanistan and the war in Iraq, not the war on the Taliban and the war on Saddam and his regime. They think of the country.
Afghanistan, I remember it was the war that there was the war we went to the wrong country, right? Or was it Iran?
Wait, what? We went to the war
after 9/11, apparently USA was supposed to be one country, but apparently there was the other country that was being attacked.
Yeah,
the wrong country attacked.
I think Tim might have brought up that point where we were talking about, he was saying something about like the people who actually came in 9/11 came from Saudi Arabia, not Afghanistan, which is a great point. But I mean, like, think about how divided our country is, and think about if another country out there in the world decided they wanted to go. Like, consider yourself, say for a second you're a liberal. Like, how would you feel if another country decided it wanted to go to war with the U.S. because of conservatives? You'd be like, well, don't go to war with my country. I'm not a conservative, Like, I don't believe this way. I don't think this way. You don't even have to like change your mind because I don't think anybody in this stream is conservative, but imagine yourself as like just an opposing person to like an ideology that the rest of the world sees. So
a big storm is coming for him.
If a country wanted to go to war with the U.S. because like they saw the world as Republican because of Donald Trump, everybody else would be like, don't go to war with us. We're not like Donald Trump. We're not like our leadership. We're not like this fraction of the country. So how can we justify doing that to any other country in the rest of the world, saying because of your leadership, because of who we view as in charge, or we view as the rest of your nation?
Solve it themselves, because it usually will be better. Because if you could see what happened, because the USA kept attacking the Middle Eastern countries,
yeah,
one of the civilians moving over to the EU, and now we're here with shit.
That's the thing, is the U.S., like, as I've said a million times, the U.S. creates so much of its enemies. But how would you feel like being in one of those countries where the U.S. is like, because we view your entire country as how your current like leadership feels, we are going to strike out of your country, and then like swap it around for a second and feel like how they would feel like if the positions were reversed. Nobody wants to feel every fucking day in their goddamn life like they could be under attack because of a foreign entity that views you as part of a party that you don't actually subscribe to. And I feel like whenever we go to invade these other countries, like, here's something I would like to say too. Like, say if we were to go to a ground war with North Korea, how many people would we be killing that are only fighting us because of fear of what their leadership might do if they don't? Like, think about that. Like,
xenophobia is in a lot of people.
Well,
not.
North Korea, though, they're trained to think a certain way. They're raised to believe a certain way. So if like the U.S. if we were to come in with the intent to liberate North Korea, how many actual innocent North Koreans, would we have ended up killing in the name of liberation by the time that conflict was over?
Too many.
Way too many. way too many because North Korea would be like, you're going to go fight in this war or else, so these people are going to fight in this war because North Korea is terrifying. Like they won't just punish you. They'll punish your fucking kids and your kids' kids and your kids' kids' kids. Mm-hmm. Like they will keep that punishment going through fucking generations. So
yeah, they've got generational prisons.
Yeah, exactly, Tim. So it's just scary to me. Like when you think about that, could you imagine in your current country? And I know, like Mike and Tim, you're in the U.S. and Magnus, you're in the EU. Like imagine in your specific country, like an idea that you hold that is unpopular, which I am absolutely confident saying that everybody on this stream and everybody viewing this stream holds one view that is unpopular with the majority of the country, or at least the reigning party. Mm-hmm. So imagine that view can not just have you punished, but have your kids punished and your kids' kids punished. Imagine that. Imagine what that would feel like. And imagine like just the terror. Like, I have kids. I would feel terrified more for my kids than myself.
Imagine being worse than Dr. Doom.
Yeah, it's like living in another country where fucking it's like living in Latveria where Dr. Doom is the fucking country leader. It's like
he would only punish the person who did something. He's not going like, oh, I'm gonna go kill your kids unless you literally did something that horrendously bad.
It's like
anything personally close, like attacking his mother or his girlfriend, what they didn't have sometimes.
And that's part of the problem I have when like people want to just continuously give like the fucking president more and more power, but I would just ask anybody to think about that. Imagine what that feels like. Imagine what it feels like to live in a country where you can't just be scared to express your opinion because of your own sake, but because of your kids' sake. Especially if you have kids, think about what that was like. Because I can imagine my daughter or my son having to be punished because of something I said or something I did. That's a terrifying thought. And then imagine, like how those people feel in North Korea. And then imagine we're going to liberate such country. And how many of those people are going to pick up a rifle and are going to shoot at our military, not because they actually want to, but because they're terrified of what might happen if they don't.
Yeah, they might think, what if the others, if we join them and they lose? They are going to be dead.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. Like, because a lot of them might think, like, oh, if I don't, like maybe even if I try to I forget what the word is, but like switch sides to the other country.
Defect.
Thank you, Tim. If I try to defect to the U.S., what's going to happen if the U.S. doesn't win? And
and if you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to attack the enemy who's attacking us. Then maybe he will praise me and give my family something.
Exactly. Like, even if you defect, they might still get your family. But even then, even if you choose to defect,
if you just decide them with against the enemy who's attacking your country, then you're gonna go against it. And you think, oh, maybe if I go do what the leader is saying, maybe he will give me and my family something.
Yeah. Like for the average North Korean, there's gonna feel like there's more incentive than opposed to that. To actually pick up a rifle and attack U.S. soldiers or allied soldiers or whoever might go to war with us. Yeah, if that were to happen. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know so much. I've read a lot of these stories and comments from people that have left North Korea that have escaped, and from what I understand from the stuff that I read is that the people there it seems like they'd more likely see American soldiers show up and they would just drop down and just surrender because their lives are horrible.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, because we're talking about if we're going to talk about North Korea as an example, Jesus Christ, fucking computer, stop digging at me. If we're going to talk about North Korea as an example, North Korea is a country where they are so harshly treated for being pro their fucking current government. Mm-hmm. It's easy to see somebody just completely being like, I cannot fucking do this anymore. But imagine a country where it's not quite as severe for believing but for the penalty of going against your country being severe, but the penalty for following your country, not being like feeling like you're gonna fucking die and your whole family's gonna be like in horrific condition forever, you know, like North Korea would be. So some of the Middle East countries, and I can't even accuse all the Middle East countries because a lot of the Middle East countries, you know, it's not necessarily a matter of government even because those countries. First of all, like if you ask me, pretty much every fucking Middle East country shouldn't actually be like an organized country. It makes no sense because all those fucking border lines were drawn after World War One. And not by the people that lived in those areas. They were drawn by people who lived outside those areas. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, by the UK mostly. And
UK.
Yeah, that was mostly UK.
Yeah,
UK and France both did.
Yeah, like dig into the afterwards, and I feel like a lot of it was because of the Ottoman Empire, but a lot of these country lines were drawn by the UK post World War One. It did not have to do with who lived there and who agreed with it or who disagreed with it. It was by people who didn't have a say or suddenly didn't have an empire ruling over them. You know, and that's why you have countries like Iraq that have so much internal conflict constantly between tribes. Is because these people don't want to live in a country together. They want to live on their own. And the fact that World War II resulted in so much, like I've always, and I've been a very advocate, like a huge advocate of just completely wiping out those borders between those Middle Eastern countries and being like, hey, your tribe, you get your own land, just deal with yourself. Don't worry about anybody else. There doesn't have to be a border. There doesn't have to be there doesn't have to be a country ruling you. There doesn't have to be a fucking regime in charge of you. You get to be your own tribe in your own area. I'm a huge advocate of just doing that, just wiping out borders for the Middle East, because when you dig into history, like I remember, because this isn't something I was taught in school, this is something I had to do on my own. And like most people aren't taught this in school. Most people aren't taught about post World War One. First of all, most people aren't taught very much about World War One in general. It's mostly focused on World War II. But go back and look into World War One and look into the aftermath and the borderlines that were drawn afterwards, and you'll just be like, why? Like, it's so much confusion because they don't give you a reason of why they drew these borders this way, and like it doesn't make any sense. And then ever since they did that, there's just been constant conflict over there, constant between tribes, between communities. It's like if imagine you lived in a very populated city in the U.S. and most of the city, like two chunks of the city, I don't know, like, well, it's just like, just imagine like being part of a community and then like having somebody like come through and be like, okay, you two communities, you are separate, but like this fraction of the community, you are now part of this other community that fucking hates you, you know, like, how would you feel? You'd just be like, wait, no, I'd rather just be with these guys. I'd rather just like live how we want to live and like go through my life feeling like just doing what I do, not like feeling like I have to share like whether or not these people are going to agree with how our land goes from here on out, kind of thing. You know, there's just too much conflict that arises from that kind of bullshit.
Yeah, I understand what you're getting at. But let me give you an example.
I would love to hear
that
it.
would probably make it easier for you. Is if you look at Pakistan and India. Basically, England drew a line on a map and said, now your country is divided. Here's Pakistan. All Muslims go over there. Here's India, and all the Hindus stay over there. And there's still, conflict over Kashmir. And, that's a prime example of, an outsider just drawing a line on a map and saying, here, this is yours and this is yours, and go ahead and separate. And it didn't work out so well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's great. I mean, like, that's a good point to bring up. And I do feel like anybody who's unfamiliar with it in the slightest bit, because honestly, like, when I look back on U.S. history, I always remember more about World War II from like elementary to middle school to high school. I always remember more about World War II than I ever remember about World War I. It wasn't a topic that was extensively covered.
And of course, we live in a different perspective.
Like
World War II, that's either
go ahead.
Yeah. Like I said, we learn here a different perspective on how World War II was than compared to what USA have. Because like we lived in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I'm always saying like the
well,
viewpoints are different.
Real quick, Magnus. I know you don't want to dive into like specifically where you're at, but for viewers, we know you live in you're somewhere in the European Union, but not in the UK. For you, where you were at and like your general area, like World War One, World War One wise, how familiar were you?
Like, I don't know much about World War One. I know a lot more about World War Two, and that is mostly.
And that's how it was. That's how I was.
About mostly about even what happened with my country. Like, I don't know much about the other countries comparatively, but
yeah,
most about your own history. Yeah. World War One is actually we learned that Napoleon is the person with World War One, but apparently he isn't. So that is weird because I keep hearing different stories than it was with World War One. So I don't know.
I feel like growing up, like there's so many things I learned at school that I'm just like, well, that wasn't true. Yeah, it's insane. But like I do feel like, and then like just to circle this around before I end the stream, you know, like there's the old saying of, you know, those who don't like learn history are doomed to repeat it, and I feel like we're gonna like circle around to the kind of shit where, you know, we're not as worried about what the implications or what the potential outfall of.
A part of me is thinking that some people want World War III to happen. Especially,
I'm sure there are. There totally are.
I'm talking about specifically people like the certain Christians and certain people who believe of Nostradamus and shit.
You have
all the things to say that World War III will fucking happen.
You have
if we do let it happen, that means in the end the Messiah come and will save everything.
You have the neo-Nazis that are like totally on board for no reason other than Trump said so, and then you have the neo-Nazis that are on board
because religious reasons.
That's what I was saying. Like you have people that are on board for religious reasons too.
Some prophecy said so. Bullshit. That is actually far more dangerous because they are pushing. It's like it is only because the president wants to say one thing. Like you're doing this because it's my leader, so I'm gonna follow it. That's one thing. But some people actually it's like because someone in the past predicted it that World War III will happen.
Yeah. And like
far more scary in my opinion.
I honestly believe, as somebody who, you know, like I'll say who politically like in the middle and like even religiously kind of in the middle, like I was raised a certain way and I still believe a lot of that, like certain things, specific things, but don't believe it. Somebody's in the middle on most sides. When I say this, I don't feel like I'm being biased one way or the other. I do not believe that World War III is impossible. Like I don't believe we can escape it. I do believe that it's actually going to happen at some point, and hopefully if and when it does, that might be the catalyst towards like some of our country waking up and realizing like this makes no sense why we're doing this. This makes no sense to do this whatsoever. We're just killing our own citizens in the name of freedom.
More dangerous to live here because if you look at the last two world wars, they all happened in Europe. So big chance the third one will be in Europe as well.
Okay, real quick from the chat, Mooney says, I think many wish for World War III just to happen. Just to make their point, and I think that's more dangerous. And I think some people because I do believe it's inevitable. I don't wish for it. I pray that we can avoid it. I don't wish for it, but I do think there are some that are very cynical and they're very like, we need World War III to happen to be like, you know, either whether you're liberal or Republican that actually believe we need this to happen to like infect, like to make change, to implicate an actual change in this country's the way the country's headed. So, you know, I do believe there are people that are that cynical. I'm not that cynical where I feel like it might, I feel like it's probably going to happen like eventually. And I'm hoping when it does happen, it's on a smaller scale than like World War One, where World War One was just a pissing contest between countries.
Smaller compared to World War II. So World War III happened.
World War II like was just so fucking like insane. It was between like countries that legitimately believed they like had the right to rule the world. It was insane. But I hope like if it happens, it's something on like a much smaller scale to that. But so on that note, I would like to just for one final point.
Without World War II, we wouldn't have kept America.
Yeah,
that's the positive thing about World War II.
Okay, so like just a real quick,
I'm terrible.
want to say, like, you know, these tweets from Donald Trump, I do feel like whether you're right or you're left or whatever way you lean, you need to like take a second and take it into context and take it into expand your like how, you know, and I'm sorry, but if you like agree or you're like super hardcore against Donald Trump, you're probably very close-minded whether you're left or right. You know, I'm very against Donald Trump, but it's based on what he says, not on the person, you know, on his name alone. So if you're like super hard against him or you're super hard like for him, like take a moment, pull back, look at the scope of things, look at just how like massive things are beyond just what you personally believe. Look at the implications of what you believe and think about it for a second. Look at the history of things and think like, holy shit, like can my inability to possibly consider the opposing side, like how close-minded I am, actually have an impact on not just me, but maybe my children too, kind of thing, like the North Korea analogy we used. So what Brandy says is, one second. She describes more of a revolution, not a world war. What I'm describing, what I think is inevitable, I think would kind of be like a global revolution, I hope. And that'll be labeled a world war. I hope it won't be like an actual world war. I feel like it will be labeled as such, but I do hope for
a more one thing as well. That even World War III is back having chance popping up.
Yeah,
there's a chance for civil wars, and not just in the USA, but in the EU as well.
Yeah,
those two things are either a big thing.
Tim, are you still with us or?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'm gonna call this stream to a close real quick. I feel like I don't have anything else to say, so real quick, Madness, I want to give you one last thing to say, and then Tim, if you want to give one last thing to say, and then we'll close on that. So go ahead, Madness.
Well, like I just said, like I not even what from big tent popping up, but civil war as well, and not in USA but EU as well. But in USA is more left versus right type civil war. Here in the EU would be more like Europeans versus Islam.
Yeah, I understand. It's an exchange of like one dichotomy for another. Like, yeah, I totally understand that. So, Tim, if you want to jump in on like kind of jump in on a way to kind of wrap up the whole conversation, feel free to express whatever like your final thoughts are, and then I might have like one more thing to say or not, but then I'm going to close the stream after that.
Yeah, like most people, I hope that it doesn't escalate to a World War III. I can see your point as it being a conflict that turns into people realizing that there's just no need to be doing this nonsense. But there's been a lot of talk lately on Twitter and around about a possible civil war in the United States. And I think more than likely, this country is kind of split more than I've seen in my entire lifetime.
Yeah.
And I think the warmongers that are pressing for war in the military-industrial complex, they want war, but like I said, they don't want it on their doorstep. So I hopefully it won't escalate to that, and hopefully we have enough sanity left in this world so it won't get to that point.
Agreed.
And so we'll have to see what happens. I mean, honestly, I think somebody needs to get Trump under control with his Twitter and with his just fly off the cuff, say whatever comes to his mind. That's what it is. He reminds me of Sophia from the Golden Girls.
That's a great analogy for anybody who's old enough to watch that show. Like, that's a great analogy. Nope. Or anybody said the ability.
I'm not old enough.
I don't know if you had the chance to watch it where you're at, Madness, or not, but if you ever had the chance, watch it. It's a very classic show in the U.S. culture. So for like a final thing, I do want to say, just to touch on one of the things Madness said, like, Jesus Christ, for somebody take the phone away from Trump and let him stop tweeting for like 5 minutes, for the love of God. But it would also be a shame that our fucking country goes into a spiral towards war because of some president's fucking obsession with Twitter and like tweeting his like most just random thoughts that he has. Like, I honestly feel like half of his tweets read like just a random shit that he thinks of. Like sometimes I'm like, I get halfway through a tweet, then I'm like, I should think about this for a minute, and then I halt on it, and then I tweet later, so I'm not tweeting like something really stupid,
Something.
or not being too emotional. So okay, real quick, to wrap it all up, I'd like to thank Tim and Madness, the two guys that were able to didn't have internet troubles or some of the things coming up that were able to hold it out. Thank you for joining us, Mike and Cody and Chaos. Thank you for being able to join us, Brandy. I really, really, really appreciate you in the chat. You gave us a lot of great insight, and Lonnie, it looks like you just joined us. We're actually about to stop the stream. So sorry. I'm gonna see if I can have you on the next stream, Lonnie. I don't know what's gonna happen next. I think I'm gonna try I think it was Saturday. I'm gonna try for a mental health related stream. Yeah, sorry, Lonnie. Sorry.
During the live stream, you said accidentally Sunday.
Yeah.
Saturday.
So sorry, Lonnie. I'll get you on the next one, man. I'm gonna try to ahead of time get a schedule posted for next week. But I think this Saturday night I'm gonna be doing a stream for a mental health stream. Sunday, I cannot guarantee there's gonna be a stream because I'm gonna have company coming over, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that stream. If anything else, it's just gonna be later in the day. And I know for sure Jason won't be on the usual Sunday stream because he's actually moving with his family to another house, so they're going to be really busy. So, so we'll figure all that out. But everybody that was able to join, and then Brandy and Lonnie, I know you're late, but thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. And then hopefully we can get you actually in on the next stream in the future. So, appreciate everybody joining. It was a really great discussion. I feel like, I know we got off track here and there, but I feel like it always kind of came back around to some very legitimate and very topical points. So, everybody that was on the, in the chat or actually joined the stream, thank you very much. And I will see you on the next one. Follow @sarcasm_liberty on Twitter to keep up to date, or make sure you sub and follow us or turn on your notifications on the YouTube channel so you always know when we're going to be doing a video. So I will see you all later. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.